Hello, I'm Dylan.
I'm Keon.
And this is Triple Play, that podcast where the third one is still the worst, because this month we watched the second X-Men trilogy, which is X-Men First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse.
Written by, here we go, Ashley Edward Miller, Zach Stantz, Jane Goldman, Matthew Vaughn, Sheldon Turner, Bryan Singer, Simon Kinberg, Michael Dougherty? I don't know. I don't know. Dan Harris, and, not Heinz Bebo.
Ah, man. Directed by Matthew Vaughn and Bryan Singer, and then produced by Lauren Schuler Donner, Simon Kinberg, Bryan Singer, Hutch Parker, and Gregory Goodman.
And released in 2011, 2014, and this year, 2016.
Well, it'll be,
2016.
it'll be 2017 when this episode goes out.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to cater to the future.
You're not going to cater to when this episode actually releases?
No, it's 2016 right now, and that's what I'm going to say it is.
Okay, I guess I can't stop you. I mean, I could have just cut the whole part out in post. So we've expanded the scope of the podcast yet again. Just 2 months ago, we watched Kung Fu Panda 3, which moved us into the 2016s for the length of the podcast, and now we've moved even deeper into 2016, although I don't think we have any plans to go any further than this.
Which is what we always say, and then we always end up doing something newer or
I think we
older.
actually don't have any plans, as of right now, at least.
No, but we could just randomly change plans, like we did when we decided to do this.
No, we didn't change plans to do this. We changed plans to do Kung Fu Panda. Kung Fu Panda
well, we were
replaced
deciding between
Logan.
this and Pirates of the Caribbean, which is what's coming out after this.
Yeah.
After the 0.5 for this.
Yeah.
So, we decided also, if you don't know, to stop hinting at it.
Yeah, we're just going to just tell you. That way you have a couple months to watch the movies that we watch in one day for your entertainment.
Nobody watches the movies along with us, let's be honest.
No. They just come here to hear us moan and complain about the movies and then, discuss the behind-the-scenes information they were too lazy to look up.
Yeah, I guess.
You gotta know your target audience for these things. So, we usually start with how many times we've seen these movies.
But this time we're bucking the trend and being radical and not doing that. Actually, no, we're still doing it. 0.
Okay, so I didn't know this until we were watching the movies, and we got to a part in First Class. I was like, wait, I've seen a chunk of this movie on TV. And then we were watching Days of Future Past. I was like, hey, I've seen a behind-the-scenes clip of this movie. So yeah, I saw one scene from the first two movies. I saw trailers for Apocalypse.
Yeah, the trailers for Apocalypse made Apocalypse look pretty bad, and Apocalypse was... Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It lived up to its expectation, then.
I guess. Right. So, this is the next X-Men trilogy.
Yeah, well, okay,
they wanted to make another trilogy.
Yeah, sort of. I don't know. The way they got to this trilogy was a little roundabout, because they released X-Men Origins Wolverine, which
cashes in on the Wolverine craze.
Also, pretty bad movie.
As does Days of Future Past.
Yeah, well, he is the best character.
I mean, I don't know. After First Class, I don't know.
Who would you put above him? Angel.
Magneto, Professor X, Mystique.
Oh, I wouldn't put Mystique above Wolverine.
After this trilogy, heck yeah.
No, I would agree with Professor X and Magneto, but Mystique, no, I'd put Mystique one notch below Wolverine. So it would be Magneto and Professor X at the top, and then Wolverine, and then Mystique.
Wolverine has way less character development than Mystique.
Well, in this trilogy, yeah, because he shows up for only one of them.
And in his previous trilogy, I'd say so.
That's probably why they gave him his own spin-off movie.
Anyway, yeah, so after that, they were like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we...
made a Magneto one.
Yeah. Well, they'd supposedly been tossing around ideas about a First Class-like concept since the beginning. Yeah. Since X1, X2-ish. And they're like, hey, what about Magneto? So they wrote up this Magneto treatment.
X-Men Origins Magneto. Apparently they were going to do this whole X-Men Origins line where they'd focus on single characters, because they also apparently had a Gambit one in development. But that one's in development hell still, I might add.
Yeah, they're coming out with Logan, that crappily titled one. Anyway,
I mean, it's Hugh Jackman's final time playing Wolverine. It's also
thank God.
It's called Logan because it's based on a comic book storyline called Old Man Logan. So
yeah, I mean that doesn't make it okay.
it makes it better. It makes it seem like it's not out of left field.
Yeah, I mean maybe the comic book title was out of left field. Although Logan is a way better title than just Logan.
Well, the plot of the comic is that he's one of the lost mutants left because he outlived everyone. Yeah, he's old now, so he doesn't really have his powers anymore. Yeah, they're fading.
That seems pretty obvious, Logan. But that doesn't make it any better. Titles should usually not be one word and should never be a full sentence.
Oh, you mean you didn't like the title? What was it? The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford? I think that was the full title of that movie.
That's not a sentence, though.
It's close to a sentence.
I mean, it's longer than most sentences. But, yeah, that's way too long. Although that is a really, I don't know, hipster-ish / conceited thing to say, but whatever. That a title should never be a full sentence, and that it usually shouldn't be a one word.
I was gonna say there's lots of good one word titles like Interstellar, Inception.
I mean, that's why I said usually shouldn't be one word.
Anyway, we're getting off topic. So yeah, they decided to take elements of the Magneto script and turn it into, I guess, sort of the first act of First Class. I mean, it's not strictly the first act because it's kind of interwoven between everything else. But it makes up the bulk of the first act.
His crappy childhood is interwoven with Professor X earning great acclaim and hitting on various women.
Yeah, well, I'd watch Magneto Nazi Hunter for a whole movie. Now I kind of wish they'd made X-Men Origins Magneto. It's just 90 to 120 minutes of him hunting down Nazis and killing them.
You mean pig farmers and tailors? What if they really were a pig farmer and a tailor?
I think he confirmed his kills before he killed them.
Yeah, no, I mean, they weren't, but what if he gets some of them wrong and he's like, oh, shoot. I mean, he probably wouldn't
he's
care. He's
probably like, well, at this point I've killed so many of them, whatever.
Just another body on the pile. Another one biting the dust, so to speak.
Another coin driven through the skull of an... Okay. That scene was pretty gruesome.
Guy who was pretending to be German.
Yeah, okay. Also, Magneto speaks 3 languages fluently in this movie.
Most characters in these movies are at least bilingual, so that's pretty cool, including Magneto's 8-year-old daughter.
Yeah, I guess by the third movie, Magneto's quadlingual. So he also speaks Polish.
Magneto speaks at least 5 languages.
Well, okay, so he speaks English, German,
French.
French, Spanish,
Polish.
He speaks Portuguese briefly in the first movie because he's in Argentina.
No, they speak Spanish in Argentina. That's why he speaks Spanish.
Was it Spanish?
Yep.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Spanish
they speak
or Portuguese
in Brazil. And Portugal.
Yeah, so Spanish, English, French, Polish, German. Yeah, it's 5.
Yep. And some of the other characters have 4 under their belt. I believe Mystique has 4. Some of the other ones
Mystique speaks Vietnamese, English. So
American English, even though she grew up in England.
Well, no.
I mean,
because I think Professor X's mansion is in New York.
But then he goes to Oxford, I guess.
He goes to Oxford.
It.
Yeah, with Mystique.
And there was that weird... okay. Mystique was Professor X's... I don't remember if this was in the original trilogy that Mystique was...
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
But here they set up that she's his weird sexual tension sister.
Yeah, well, she ditches him for his best friend. Briefly.
Yeah, which is probably a good course of action.
And also for Hank, she really gets around that mansion. She can be anyone she wants. Okay?
Destroys Cerebro when she shouldn't and doesn't destroy it when she should. Thanks, Mystique.
There's actually an Easter egg that I think we missed in the first movie where she's turning into she's in the bed and Magneto's in the room and she like turns into someone else. She's like, how about this? Do you remember that scene? Yeah. Okay, apparently I didn't recognize her without all the prosthetics on. She turns into Rebecca Ramjian, who plays Mystique in the original trilogy, and Matthew Vaughn put it in there as like a little Easter egg.
Yeah,
like,
I just thought it was a old makeup / CGI'd version of what's her face,
Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, but I guess not. I don't know.
So anyway, I guess that's a good segue actually into casting for the first movie.
And all the controversial and debaggy comments Matthew Vaughn has made about their production of these movies.
Here we go. So the first people cast, I believe, were James McAvoy and
Magneto.
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah. He was cast before McAvoy. I don't know how to say his name.
I'm just going to say McAvoy because that's how I think it's pronounced, and you can say whatever you want, and I don't think we can be wrong.
I'll just call him Professor X.
That works.
I'll just call him Patrick Stewart. I mean, I read like in Days of Future Past, they were like, he was supposed to be moving towards like acting more like Patrick Stewart.
Well, yeah.
So, which makes sense. So,
yeah, I was going to say that in the first film, I think Matthew Vaughn and Bryan Singer, who was originally attached to direct, but he wanted to do something else, so he just became a producer, said like, don't play it like Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, because they're like, one, you're younger versions, and two, this is like a soft reboot, so you can kind of do your own interpretation of the characters. So I think both McAvoy and Fassbender watched the original trilogy to see how Stewart and McKellen played it, but I think they both kind of went their own direction, at least in first class. They were supposed to.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think they did a pretty good job of it. Like both their acting and the script did like a pretty good job of like, hey, this is a younger Professor X and Magneto, and like First Class had a lot of character development for all the characters, but especially for them. Mm-hmm. So like you can kind of see like, I mean, that really made sense as like a good origin story for them.
Yeah.
I really liked First Class. In case you couldn't tell,
I like Days of Future Past was the best X-Men.
Actually, not. But
actually, yes.
You can think that. Doesn't make it right, though.
I mean, it does make it right, because I am the Lord above all.
Days of Future Past was up there. I don't know. I might put X1 above that. Maybe. I
put Days of Future Past above everything else because, number one, I like time travel, and number two, I thought it actually made sense for a time travel movie, which is impressive.
Yeah, well, so this is getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but I want to mention it now. We watched the Rogue cut edition of Days of Future Past, which people on the Amazon reviews, which I should never trust, but I did for some reason. So Amazon reviews were like, don't watch the original, watch the Rogue cut. Like, why are you watching this? Why are you going to buy this original? Buy the Rogue cut. It's the same price. We didn't pirate these movies, by the way. We actually bought them on rented them on Amazon. But then we watched the Rogue cut, and I was like, yeah, this Rogue stuff was kind of just in there.
Okay, so actually, this is still a little bit ahead of ourselves, but it is a response to what you were talking about. I messaged my friend later, because we're maybe going to see a movie later yesterday evening.
And you did, spoiler.
And I was like, yeah, Days of Future Past pretty good. And he's like, nah, man, Rogue just randomly shows up at the end. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, she just shows up. And I'm like, no, they go and rescue her. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, oh, well. So I guess in the original cut of the film, Rogue just shows up at the end or something along those lines. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I guess the Rogue cut really does make it better, because I liked it better that they went and rescued her, even if it was for a nonsense reason.
I mean, yeah, it was pretty cool.
I preferred that to just showing up.
Yeah, that's true. It was pretty cool that they had to go back to the mansion, so.
Yeah.
So there's
anyway,
that, but
back to casting for the first film. Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, after McAvoy, what's his face, acted.
James.
Yeah, after he acted with Fassbender, then that was like according to Matthew Vaughn, it was like, all right, you're Professor X now.
Yeah, but I think those two are the easiest to cast for them. Probably. I think, because after that they had to find everyone else.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, everyone else signed on pretty quickly. Jennifer Lawrence, apparently, when she went to the reading, like an audition, she hadn't seen the first three X-Men movies. She just played the character like young and naive, and then she went home and watched the movies, and then she was like, oh god, I did it all wrong. I played it completely wrong. Why are they calling me back?
But apparently she did it all right because she was cast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, but that's what it's supposed to be, because like they're all supposed to be like more. They're all supposed to be younger, more naive, and like not the mature versions that they are in the originals.
And not that matters anymore, because they wiped the original timeline in the second one, I think.
Yeah, they did. They totally did.
So
Wolverine's the only one who remembers it. And I guess Professor X, if you just headcanoned him into reading Wolverine's mind.
which he probably does. I mean, they, at the end of Days of Future Past, like, we've got a lot of catching up to do, and then it like implies that they like discuss the timeline changes.
Yeah. And Professor X and Beast just believe Wolverine.
Well,
he gives some evidence as to why he's from the future, but still, like, really?
So, yeah, Matthew Vaughn was a director. I feel like you have some things that he said.
I mean, he seemed kind of a jerk face-ish. I don't know. There was one comment he made in like some interview with him. Like, the question was, how do you walk the fine line between catering to hardcore X-Men / Marvel fans, or I guess just hardcore X-Men fans, and people who like the X-Men movies or who are just seeing this movie for the first time and like don't know about X-Men? He's like, well, I really don't care about the hardcore X-Men fans because they're just gonna have to put up with whatever we put out, which is like, I mean, that's all right, but it's also kind of jerkish to just straight up say it. So, hey, you can at least pretend.
Yes, yeah. I read an interview with him, and I felt like he was coming off like really holier than thou attitude, and I was like, what if that's just like the way this interview is worded? If that's actually him, and then you showed up to him, and he's like, yeah, so he's kind of a jerk, and I was like, oh, I guess that's just him. And she was like, oh yeah, I went through 4 directors of photography on this film. It's like sort of like the cinematographer, but not exactly. And I was like, I guess that's kind of interesting. You're like, oh, well, he's a hard person to work with, so I'm not surprised. Oh, yeah, and he talked about how... Okay, so they actually, like, really compressed the production schedule for First Class.
Apparently so.
Because they wrapped filming in February, and the movie was releasing in June. Yeah, Matthew Vaughn was like, oh, we had to film this so quickly, I didn't even get to storyboard the whole movie. I had to, like... film it as we went, and if I thought something was wrong, we would just retake it, and I'd have to come up with it on the fly, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, but special effects for this movie also had to be done pretty quickly.
There weren't many for the first film, except Mystique's transformations.
And, what's his face? Red Nightcrawler, Azazel.
Okay, and, apparently, I found out Azazel is supposed, in the comics, is Nightcrawler's father.
Wow, big surprise there. Yeah, I didn't know, because I remember when we watched Pride of the X-Men, it was like, hey, Juggernaut is Professor X's brother. So I was like, I didn't know if they were adding that Mystique was his sister, sort of to be like, because the Juggernaut wasn't in this, or like, hey, let's just make Mystique Professor X's sister. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah. They didn't add that sick dragon from Pride of the X-Men. That was such a missed opportunity.
Whatever. Comic book origins change like every decade when they feel it's fit, so it's like...
Yeah, especially since these movies are like a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but they also had, what's-her-face's Diamond Snow Ice body.
Emma Frost.
Yeah. So that was apparently hard to make. I read a whole article about that.
So did I. Like, apparently they had to really work at making it not look like it was just Jell-O or gloss, because they had to get the like refraction right on the...
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the special effects were outsourced, which is normal.
Jennifer
Lawrence... I feel like it was more here, maybe because they're working with like a really high budget than other crap we've watched.
Well, they used like something ridiculous, like 7 studios, I think, for Days of Future Past special effects. Like, one studio alone did just the Quicksilver in the kitchen scene. And I think it's like, well, each studio is good at something, so you give them what they're good at. It's like one studio does Mystique's transformations, and then one studio will do Emma Frost, and then one studio will do like Quicksilver or whatever.
Yeah. The way they did Quicksilver's scene in the third one, which I actually didn't like as much as the second one, but maybe it's just because we watched it like immediately after.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's pretty clearly a throwback.
I mean, yeah, it is a throwback, and like maybe if you actually watched it 2 years later, you'd be like, hey, that's pretty cool, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't think it was that interesting.
Yeah, that seems a common complaint of us on the show. Like, that would have been pretty interesting if we hadn't watched these all back to back.
Yeah, but the way they did that one, I mean, I guess we're talking about special effects for all three of these now, but who cares? They put the cameras on carts or whatever they used to move them, and they just sped them around the mansion at like 90 miles per hour, capturing 3,000 frame per second footage. And yeah, that's how they did it.
Well, so the one they did in the second movie was really interesting because they took they actually like suspended the I don't remember who the actor was.
He actually had superpowers. That's how they did it.
Yeah, that's it. No, they suspended him so he could run along the walls, and they used him and the stunt double, and they filmed them running along the wall, and then they filmed them on like running on a treadmill, and then like digitally replaced his legs in the shot while he's running on the wall, so it makes more sense and looks like he's actually moving quickly. And then they had to do all of this crazy CG to like make everybody freeze in time, and they had to add all the raindrops. It took them 7 months to do that like 2-minute scene alone because they had to simulate all the water physics with the bullets hitting the water and all the food that's flying everywhere, and then he's punching everyone.
Yeah, the worst part about that scene was how big of a waste of food it was.
Yeah, except it was all CG food, so...
Yeah, but like in the movie,
sucks.
like, man, that sucks.
But no food was harmed in the making of this movie. Well, I guess that's a good segue to the second movie, actually, Days of Future Past, unless you have anything else you want to add about
no
First
food was
Class.
harmed is a good...
No, just us talking about that scene is a good segue into...
Nope, I don't have anything to add about First Class, other than that it was the best X-Men movie.
Okay,
really enjoyable, and the best like superhero movie that I've seen.
I disagree on that front.
Well, I think you've probably seen more, because the only ones I've seen are like the other X-Men movies, this trilogy, Spider-Man. I just watched Suicide Squad like a couple weeks ago. That was pretty mediocre. And Dark Knight and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, see, Guardians of the Galaxy is my favorite. Even though
It's overrated.
it barely even counts as a superhero film.
Well, who cares? I'm counting it anyway. Yeah, I think people just...
I liked Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, it was all right, but it wasn't great.
It was my favorite superhero movie. And you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't make it right.
Same to you.
So, yeah, apparently Bryan Singer announced the casting for the second movie on Twitter. So that was
just like
interesting, I guess.
Just like how Stan Lee revealed why he's not in Days of Future Past on Twitter, which is the most BS money-grubbing reason ever. Which is that, oh god, he announced that like, hey, I'm usually in these movies, but I'm not in Days of Future Past because it might get people to see it twice by being like, hey, I didn't see Stan Lee in that movie, maybe I'll just go see it again to see if I can catch him. But he's not in it. So, wow.
I don't
Whoever's
understand.
Decision that was should not make those types of decisions anymore.
See, I don't get people who would do that. Like, oh, I didn't see Stanley. Let me just see the movie again.
That's the thing. Like, I feel it didn't even work. Like, maybe 1 or 2 people did that. Like, how much more did they think they would have made based on just
$20,
that?
2 tickets. What happens for Days of Future Past is that they wanted to do an adaptation of the story Days of Future Past, the comic book story.
Except they wanted to shoehorn Wolverine in it because he's super popular.
Well, apparently in the comics, Kitty Pryde is the one who goes back in time, but they were like...
But they're like, nah, we need to shoehorn Wolverine in it because he's super popular.
Actually they were like, the actress we have playing Kitty Pryde is 24 in the future, which means in the past she'll be -20, so we had a little bit of a problem there.
Yeah, but I'm sure the Wolverine being super popular bit is pretty important to why it's Wolverine as well.
I mean, yes, but... I would have preferred Wolverine to like any other character they had in the future there.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, I I'm not complaining about it. I'm calling it out, but at the same time, do I want a whole movie with Kitty Pryde going back to the past? Heck no.
Yeah,
So
see?
so I'm okay with Wolverine doing it, but it's also that Wolverine was super popular. You can't deny.
But as soon as like Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen said they were in, they're like, yeah, we can do this movie. So they did.
So they did.
They had to start
Really
filming.
Matrixy.
They like spent a solid year filming Days of Future Past 2 because they had so many conflicting schedules for all the characters. They had to film in blocks, and they only had like what's her name who plays Storm for 3 weeks, so they only gave her like really
Halle
minor
Berry.
roles. Yeah,
She was pregnant too, so maybe that explains why she had such a minor role.
So they like only gave her a couple scenes, and then it was like Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. They had like a month because they had so many stage shows that they were doing at the time. So like, oh, we only have a month to film all the scenes with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. But they got it done eventually. So
Yeah.
Wolverine goes back in time.
They outsourced to some of the same special effects studios,
Yeah,
which makes sense because they're like, hey, you did a good job on First Class, so do it again.
it's also like mostly the same effects. So
Yeah.
the
Except no Nightcrawler in this.
not yet.
I mean,
A
the
apocalypse.
A-popcorn-lypse. Well, First Class had Azazel, and
Yeah.
then this doesn't have anything, and then the next one had Nightcrawler. So
Yeah. Well, in the second one, there's a scene where Magneto goes into the stadium and then he like lifts it up and carries it over to the White House. Yeah, so I saw
Show off.
behind the scenes featurette of that, and they didn't even film that in the stadium. They filmed it on like a little league field, and they just composited in the stadium later.
yeah, makes sense.
They just like made a nice They found a baseball field with a nice infield that looks sort of like the Major League one, and then they just filmed it there. And it's really interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen footage of them filming special effects scenes outside, because if you're inside, you have your green screen. You can like paint the whole wall green. But when they're filming outside, it's really interesting to see how they. You can't like put green screen around the whole like plane of field. So usually what they only do is only the area in which the actor moves, they'll like set up this big screen, this green screen behind them, and then like everything else will just be empty. So they only like need the green screen on the spot where the actor's acting. So it's weird to watch behind the scenes footage because you see the scene you recognize in the movie, but it's just an actor moving in this tiny little green screen. You're like, what?
I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
Not
Not that surprising.
It's just interesting though.
Yeah.
Apparently.
The casting was pretty much the same.
I didn't realize or notice this either, but apparently, so they gave everybody 70s clothes because it was 1973 in the second movie.
Yeah,
but,
and inserted some 70s style music.
But they gave Quicksilver 80s clothes because they wanted to show he was like, he didn't
wave,
he didn't care about time or place because he was like so quick or whatever.
Whatever.
I didn't even notice it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't notice.
And then the third movie, they dropped that bomb on you. Oh yeah, Magneto's my dad. Whoa. Yeah, if you didn't know, it's the same Quicksilver who was in Avengers: Age of Ultron. So.
Yep, still living in his mom's basement at like 35.
It's a pretty sick basement, though.
Yeah, it is. He has Miss Pac-Man down there.
He's got a TV,
A bunch of
couches
Twinkies that he's stolen.
Couches. It's pretty roomy too. It's like a solid size there.
Anyway,
yeah, the third one has
casting was pretty much the same.
the like least interesting production information because like once the
Because it's
second
the
one
least
was
interesting
big,
movie to watch.
because it was the least interesting movie, and once the second one was big, it was like an automatic given that
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, even after that first X-Men trilogy, they're gonna make more X-Men movies. Like, they are. Until the X-Men bubble bursts. Can't wait for that to happen. Can't wait for the larger superhero bubble to burst.
It's not gonna happen
Anytime soon, but like, it'll happen.
anytime soon.
No, you said it's not gonna happen, so I said, yeah, it's not gonna happen anytime soon. It'll happen one day, though.
Probably. But, the X-Men bubble will burst after Logan when everyone realizes Hugh Jackman's not coming back to play Wolverine anymore.
Yeah.
They'll like cast some younger actor in the role, and they'll pull like a Days of Future Past and retcon him into being a different actor now.
Yeah, I wonder whether they're just going to reboot X-Men instead of pulling all this timeline BS.
Yeah, the soft reboot nonsense.
It's going to happen at some point.
Eventually, yeah. I mean, they're going to have to do it to Marvel, too. Like, just wait until they have to recast Iron Man. Wait till that uproar happens.
Yeah, I really don't care about any Marvel/comic book related stuff.
Yeah, the third one was like... So they were like, okay, we'll adapt the comic storyline Apocalypse, and then
and they purposely... I mean, I didn't notice... I don't know if you did, but I didn't notice, like, that it was more violent than the other ones. Like, but apparently they attempted to make this one more violent than any other X-Men. It
did kind of seem like, well, like when Apocalypse first shows up, he does just decapitate 3 dudes.
Yeah, there was that decapitation thing. Because they wanted to make Apocalypse seem more menacing and evil, because they wanted him to be the biggest evil in the entire X-Men series, but it didn't really work out because he's an ancient evil. So kind of like in Kung Fu Panda 3, when they...
Except they sort of did it well in Kung Fu Panda 3.
Not really well, but better.
Well, okay, in Kung Fu Panda 3...
It was a sick ox dude.
Well, it made sense in Kung Fu Panda 3 because there was an escalation of villains, right? There was, like, the regular guy, then there was, like, the guy who was,
Shen.
like, the king who had wiped out like whole countries, and then there was the mythical being. So it was like there was a build-up, and then X-Men, they just dropped Apocalypse on you, like, we got Apocalypse.
I guess, and the thing about Apocalypse, though, is like, the other Days of Future Past, not really, but at least First Class and like maybe some of the X1, X2 were like sort of grounded, or at least as grounded as it can be, because there's like, they're dealing with some historical events, and like, it's pretty real world. The only real sci-fi thing is the mutants, right?
Which is like a feasible science fiction concept. I mean, not that they would have powers like of that level, but the mutation is a feasible concept.
Yeah, so it was a bit more grounded, and then like Apocalypse just showed up, which he is supposed to be a mutant, but they like made him super OP god guy.
His power, his power
was
was
like do whatever he wants.
His original power was like he could transfer his consciousness into other bodies, and then the lady was like, so apparently that means that if he transfers into another mutant, he gets their powers. And I was like, so I guess he's just like,
well, that's why he's
chimeras.
That's why he's transferred into, or he's trying to transfer into Professor X.
Because he doesn't have telepathy. Well, he doesn't have like mind reading / control. Because pretty sure he has like telepathy or something. He just turn everything to sand. The other thing about Apocalypse 2 was that he was just kind of like a more old and kind of more OP Magneto.
And that he's like a lot more generic than Magneto, especially after you learn Magneto's backstory in First Class. And like has a pretty crappy reason for wanting to destroy everything / build himself up as a god.
Yeah, he wants to build himself as a god because he wants to.
He just wants to. That's it.
I mean, that's a legitimate reason.
Yeah, but it's like way worse than Magneto.
Hey, who are we to rat on Apocalypse's decisions? If he wants to be a god, he can be a god.
Yeah, well, all I have to say is if Apocalypse ever shows up, I'd bow down to him.
Yeah, because you would die if you didn't.
Yeah.
Also, you're probably... like, if you're not a mutant, you're dead anyway, so it's not even worth just trying.
Yeah, I'd be like those guys in the hallway, like, hey, we're just regular people. The mutants are right in there. We'll let you... Oh, God. Oh, God.
When they bust Wolverine out in the third movie, saying you get that pre-exit cameo. Oh, yeah, they really like to use their one F-bomb in all 3 of these movies.
First it's Wolverine, and then it's Professor X, and then it's... I don't remember who it was in the Apocalypse.
Wasn't it Moira? I feel like it was Moira.
I don't know. I think it was. Yeah. I read that Bryan Singer cameos in Apocalypse. He's one of the guards that Wolverine kills.
Oh, jeez.
I didn't notice him because I like barely know what he looks like. So
you barely know. I don't even know what he looks like.
I've seen like 2 pictures of him. So.
There was another cameo by like the author of Days of Future Past, I think, in that movie.
No. Actually, Bryan Singer looks really plastic surgeried. If you look at his face.
Well, now you don't know if that's in the show notes.
I don't know if it's true or not, but yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Apocalypse made a lot of money.
Yeah, but there wasn't really much interesting about it. They like contracted more special effects studios and did that, and then like
Yeah, and the thing about the casting was like everyone had been contracted for 3 movies when First Class was made. So there was like,
it does.
you can break contract, right? But like, I think that there was by being in a contract, there was a higher than normal probability that the third one and second one were going to get made.
Yeah, of course. And like this is sort of a Mystique trilogy, so like they kind of wrap up Mystique's character a bit here. And like Magneto to a lesser extent. That's also the thing about the third one, is that Magneto, he got a lot at the beginning, and then he's, I don't know, I guess just sort of a pawn later. And I don't know, the other thing I wanted to mention about the third one is like they spend so much time with Apocalypse gathering his 4 horsemen, and like, but they didn't really do much. Well, they did, but the 4 horsemen had like way less character than like Azazel and Angel and what's Emma Frost and like the lackeys from First Class.
I want to know what happened to Emma Frost between First Class and Days of Future Past.
She died, right? I think she was one of the mutants that they listed as dead.
Pretty
sure.
I remember Mystique mentioning Azazel,
X-Men Origins, Emma Frost, no.
Angel, and
Banshee. Banshee died.
Banshee and what was the other random enemy mutant whose powers were like kind of lame?
Oh yeah, Storm knockoff.
Yeah, that guy.
I called him Twister.
Yeah, it really seemed in First Class like they were using all the discount knockoff versions of the X-Men because they didn't want to introduce all the big name players yet. They also like retconned Storm into being
Egyptian.
Like maybe that was her original backstory.
No, she was always Kenyan.
I don't.
Even in the comics, she's Kenyan. But like, okay, maybe they're just writing it off as like they changed the timeline and now she's Egyptian because like she's probably born after 1973. So I don't know why, but I'm trying to justify this nonsense. No, if she was
born after 1973, she'd be less than like 10 or less in
I guess
Apocalypse.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know then. Yeah, I guess they just retconned her into being Egyptian.
Like they skipped decades.
Maybe she's an immigrant.
An immigrant to Egypt from Kenya. I mean, hey, she's Storm.
She can do whatever she wants. They include little origins, which is kind of nice, about how Storm has white hair, Professor X is bald, and like there's another one too, but I don't remember.
Yeah,
something about Magneto.
There was an interview I read for Days of Future Past where apparently a lot of the fans were in uproar because Professor X wasn't bald, and I was like, I don't care.
Really, who cares, guys? Who even cares?
McAvoy was like, we're going to make him bald eventually, but if we're going to make him bald, it's got to be for a big event. It's got to be something that's big that makes him bald. We're not just going to shave his head and be like, Professor X is bald now. Which, I mean, I guess I liked that, they threw in that little...
Yeah, I mean, they could have just done that. It's kind of like in, what's it called? The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where it's like, hey, they didn't really need to make it a big event how he got the poncho, whatever, but they kind of just had him take it off the dude.
Yeah.
So kind of, it's, not necessary, but sort of nice.
Yeah. Which I mean, I guess it leads us to like how well did it work as a trilogy, which we've kind of been talking about already, but pretty terribly.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
On certain fronts, it's pretty bad.
First Class is like a pretty good prequel to X1, 2, and 3. And then they kind of just took it in a whole other direction, because I read Bryan Singer was like, hey, I want to incorporate elements from every X-Men movie. I don't want to retcon anything, so I just want to kind of throw it all in and rewrite the timeline. So we're not going to... Because he was asked, like, are you disregarding X3? Because people didn't really like that one. He's like, no, we're not going to disregard it. We're just going to rewrite it.
I feel like they did, though, disregard X3. Because, like, Professor X just gets vaporized.
They did, but they explained it away in that post-credit sequence that nobody watched that also really sucks.
We missed the post-credit sequence in Days of Future Past that just sets up Apocalypse anyway, so we didn't miss anything. It's just a bunch of Egyptians shouting, like, Apocalypse's Egyptian name, which I don't remember what it was, like N...
Apocalypse, probably.
No, it's like N. Burn Sir or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that.
And he's, like, building a pyramid with his mind, and I was like, okay. Yeah, so for, like, Mystique and Magneto and Professor X, I feel like it was a decent trilogy.
They got a lot of character development.
Like, their stories felt like they were completed by the trilogy, or
Well,
at
even
least,
by First
or at least they
Class.
felt like they had a complete trilogy, a complete story over the
Yeah,
three.
Mystique for sure. Magneto, like, I don't know, Magneto was kind of weird in Days of Future Past. It was like, why is he so willing to kill Mystique? Like, you'd think he wouldn't be, but I guess he is, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a little bit weird. I feel like he tries to justify it, like I'm trying to save our race because.
Yeah, I feel like anyone else, yeah, he would just kill them, but like Mystique, probably not.
Yeah, but I mean, on the other hand, it's like we're not. If you consider it in the context of the first three X-Men movies, like yeah, but in the new trilogy, like him and Mystique aren't actually like that close because she was closer to.
They kind of were in First Class, but I guess you can just write it off as like 10 years of solitary confinement made him go crazy.
Well, I mean, so he gets put in solitary, like so Kennedy gets assassinated in '63.
Yep.
So that's the year of First Class. So he gets thrown in jail like pretty much immediately, and then like Mystique goes off on her own thing. That like they didn't really have that much friendship development.
They did in First Class. He's
But,
been
like-
in solitary confinement for 10 years.
Not to the extent that the first three X-Men trilogies, though, is the point I'm making. Like,
What do you
I mean, the first
what?
three movies, because in the first three movies they were like she was his right hand man, but like in First Class,
Woman.
I mean, yeah, in First Class, Mystique she was with Professor X for 50% of the movie until Magneto
Yeah, that
meets
was-
Professor X.
That was
and
like
then-
one of the points of the movie, which is like kind of sexist too, but yeah. So that makes sense. Like, why would he be so willing to kill Mystique? But
well, because
just
he's
sort of
not as
wrote it
close to her. Because in the first three movies, what I'm saying is,
I mean, yeah, he was pretty close to Mystique in First Class too. I think,
but not as the first three movie. In the first three movies, there's like obviously years of them working together. Whereas in First Class, he has like a couple months with Mystique.
Yeah, that doesn't. It's not about the quantity. It's about like, yeah, they had a pretty close relationship in First Class. So that's why I was just
I didn't think it was as close as the first three X-Men movies, though.
I did.
Like, I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I think First Class did like a really good job giving all the characters enough character development, even like Beast and like even Banshee, like this, even Angel, like these minor characters that you don't
What about
care
Havoc?
Yeah, Havoc too, kind of.
What about the guy they killed, though?
Yeah, of course they're gonna kill the token black guy. I'm serious.
I feel like they killed him because his power would have been the most useful in that final battle.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you can just grow bird wings and
Yeah.
what are those dinosaurs that spit poison from Jurassic Park? That's not real, but you could have just done it anyway.
Well,
None of this shit is real.
yeah, well, I feel like they decided, hey, we're going to kill someone because we need to up the stakes, and then they decided to just kill.
Of course. Yeah, whatever. Anyway,
Hey, well, oh, wait, no. I was going to say they kept the not Mystique woman, but she went and joined the villains, so that's not actually true either.
yeah. Well, yeah, so they gave all the characters like a lot of character development, mostly Magneto and X and Mystique, obviously, but like it felt complete for all of them. Whereas in
Yeah.
like other X-Men movies, just like throw in these mutants. Who cares who they are? Just whatever.
Okay, and then Havoc shows up in Apocalypse. Didn't recognize him because of his new hairstyle.
Yeah.
But it is actually
I
the
didn't-
same person.
We didn't know that was Havoc for like 3/4 of the movie until he uses his power. Apparently he's Cyclops' brother.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense. Laser beam from his chest, laser beam from his eyes.
Yeah, the chest is way more useful, though. I mean, the eyes you
Yeah.
can't see. At least
Yeah,
with the
and
chest you
Cyclops
can...
lives his entire life through a red tint, through those rose-tinted glasses. Okay, no.
Anyway. So the future of the franchise, I guess Bryan Singer's like, yeah, we kind of maybe want to readapt the Dark Phoenix saga that we did for X3, but better this time. And I was like, yeah, sure. And they're like, oh yeah, the next movie's going to be set in the 90s, so I guess they're skipping another decade. And they're just not going to explain how these characters didn't age at all in this decade.
Yeah, why not?
Like,
20 years later, and Hank and Mystique and still look the same. Although I think well, X looks old. James looks older, and as does Magneto. And I think they purposely did that because,
probably, yeah.
well, I mean, they're in their late 30s, I think, or early 40s. So I obviously they gave them young makeup for First Class. So they kind of just did that less for the other ones, but whatever.
Yeah. don't know, I thought it was weird in Apocalypse where Professor X shows up 20 years later with Moira McTaggart and he's like, hey, it's been 20 years.
Also, I wiped your memory.
So I was like,
Don't know why I said that so creepily. Although it is a creepy thing to do to wipe someone's memory.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's kind of that.
Yeah, they're making Logan now.
It actually looks pretty
Pretty
good.
hyped for that. No, I'm not. I really don't care.
I'm
about
interested in seeing it. I'm not hyped, but I'm interested in seeing it because it looks pretty good.
I mean, I know we're gonna watch it at some point, so yeah, I'm gonna watch it. So,
I mean, I don't know. I think it's gonna be interesting. They're introducing X-23. Not that makes the movie interesting, but yeah.
so yeah, there was a pretty big-ish controversy. Well, I don't know if it was big. There was a controversy.
Big on the internet.
Surrounding, well, it was big. The physical billboard itself was big because I know exactly
yes.
where in LA that billboard is, and it's huge. So, I think I know the one that it was.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter where it is. It was a big. Most billboards are big.
There's some in LA that are like freaking huge.
I know.
And if it's the one that I'm thinking of, then yeah, it's pretty big. But yeah, there was a controversy over it. Like, what's his face? Apocalypse was like choking Mystique, and they're like, "Hey, it advocates violence against women," which is like, I guess, yeah.
Well, I mean,
the response to that, I didn't really read into it. I just read whatever Wikipedia had about this. The response to it was like, well, what if he was choking a Magneto? Then would it be violence against men? Huh? Would it be violence against Jews? No, so don't make a big deal about it. But at the same time, like, I can see where they're coming from because, like, yeah, violence against women is like a pretty big deal in society, and like violence against men, not as big of a deal.
I mean,
so yeah, I can understand.
I can kind of see what they're going for, but like on the other hand, like we said, Mystique is the main character of these movies, and it's like a pretty common advertising technique to put your main hero in some sort of peril in the advertising because that's what gets you to go to the movie. Like, oh man, how are they going to get out of this? Like, what are they going to do? Yeah,
I agree with that. And but at the same time, I also see why it's a big deal because they're like choking her and she's like the main woman character. And like, yeah, it's kind of provocative.
But like, what makes it like even more confusing is when you actually see the movie, like the context is in which it's like when it happens. There was like no complaints about it happening then. They were just like, oh.
I don't even remember it in the movie, actually.
It's right at the end when she turns into Psylocke and she slices his throat.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then he grabs her and she turns into Mystique and he's choking her.
Yeah, but it wasn't... okay. So that's the other thing about it. I question why that was even the billboard because it's not a big part of the movie. So
I mean, like I said, it's like an advertising technique to put your main hero.
I feel like they could have done something else though, but they did end up removing the billboard. So I don't know. I think they made the right choice in removing it.
I mean, I don't know. I just it's like such a small thing to get worked up about. I'm trying to carefully word this. I feel like these people get worked up about this.
I mean, yeah, it's just a movie. Who really gives a crap?
Yeah,
but
at
the same time, I also see why.
I feel like they get worked up over it appearing as an ad, but then they don't actually do anything about it, is the thing. That's why
people complained about it. That's why they took it off. So,
no, but they don't actually do anything about the problem of violence against women.
It's still in the movie, though, so...
They're not going to remove it from the movie. It's also like...
They do things like that. I mean... Around when 9/11 happened, they removed tons of stuff from tons of movies.
Well, yeah. But, like, that was a big event. This is like, violence against women is
it's a big deal.
It's like a systematic problem in our society that I feel like people who are getting worked up about the ads are doing the right thing in getting worked up about it because it is perpetuating, like, the problem, but at the same time, they're not doing anything more to combat the problem, is what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, I guess. Like, you just point to a movie and say, hey, this is pretty bad, which, like, might be true. Like, yeah, it really is pretty bad, but I don't know.
I mean, I agree that they should have removed the billboard. Like, I can see why they did, and I think they did.
You're in luck. They did.
I agree that they made the right choice. I just feel like the people who are complaining about this could also do more to combat the problem.
Maybe they are. I don't know who's complaining about it.
I mean, just based on my experience with the internet and the people on the internet who complain about these things.
Yeah, well, people on the internet are D-bags. Everyone knows that.
Well, like, this controversy, like, originated on the internet is why I bring that point up.
Well, that doesn't make it bad.
No, but you just said people on the internet are D-bags, so.
Yeah, it doesn't make the complaint itself bad. But
no,
yeah,
but
most people
it
on
does
the internet
bolster
are
my
D-bags.
point that they might not be doing anything else.
I don't know.
I mean, neither do I. I mean, completely baseless assumptions. I'm just saying people should do more to combat the problem.
Not me, though. I don't want to have to work or do anything about it. So I can leave other people to do that. I'll just step in at the end and take some credit.
All right. Okay.
It was all me, guys.
You solved the problem?
I've solved the problem.
All right.
Once the problem's solved, it'll be me. It's not me yet.
Other than that, we've already mentioned like all the expanded universe stuff on our previous X-Men episode, which you should listen to.
Yeah, we mentioned all the expanded the X-Men things.
We spent just a solid hour just listing them. We listed every comic storyline, every spin-off movie, every TV show
superhero.
episode.
We actually did look up that list of heroes.
Yeah, we found Devil Dinosaur.
Yeah. Didn't make an appearance in these movies, unfortunately.
Darn. Yeah, well, I guess that's that. Anything else?
I mean, I feel like there's more to talk about, but I guess there's not.
I mean, do you have anything else to talk about?
I had a bunch of other stuff I wanted to say, but who knows if I'm going to remember them. I don't remember what I wanted to say. Should have taken those notes.
Yeah, I should have taken notes too. Although I think I said everything I wanted to say. Email us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on X-Men, Days of Future Past, the best X-Men movie. You can find us on YouTube
/ First Class, the real best.
Google Play and iTunes, all at Triple Play. Leave a rating if you like the show.
Right, check us on Facebook at Triple Play, like us on Facebook, also check us on Twitter at 3P Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're obviously doing something else related to X-Men, but then after that we're watching Pirates of the Caribbean, the first 3.
I'm excited for that. I like those movies.
First one's really good, and then I've only seen the first one and the fourth one, so. Until then, the end.